Okay, well I decided it was time for a different view. This is Elizabeth Jane Beard speaking, and you're looking at a view of my knees, which is, yeah, it's an interesting idea when I'm talking about my knees. You know, I mean, what am I looking at here? I mean, you would say, oh, those look like a pair of knees. But from my perspective, they don't look like, well, I mean, yeah, okay, I can label them knees. I'm just having a cigarette here, so excuse me. I'm just going to rearrange myself a little bit so I can see that's out beside my door there. Bit of washing on the line. This is my lounge. Those are my knees again, see? My knees. I mean, for me to say my knees is a very peculiar idea. My. Because see, the thing is, oh sorry, I've just put my hand in front of the camera. That wasn't very smart. See, I've got a nice picture up there. I've got a few nice things around here. I'm not going to do a tour of the house or anything. Is that a good view? Oh well, we'll just see. But you know, this is the view that I'm looking at, although certainly it's a lot larger than what you can see on the screen. My view fills the room, or the room fills my view. Here I am using the word my, and see, the word my doesn't make any sense. I mean, well, here's me putting my finger across. Again, I'm just going to sit up a bit. Oh. You know, I mean, it seems to me that... What was I going to say? What was I going to say? Well, what some people may not understand, I mean, I haven't really talked about it. There's my feet. See, look, feet. Apparently they're my feet. My feet. I mean, I'm not inside this body. Never was. Are you inside a body? Well, if you think you are, then that's good, because, you know, that works for me. It works for me if you believe you're inside a body. I like that idea. But you're not really inside a body. Not really. But, you know, if you want to believe that you are, and that suits you to believe that, then that's good. But you'll have to have a God. You can't be inside a body and not have a God looking after things, because it's too scary otherwise. It's just too scary. So, you know, you have to have a God. And, you know, it's like, well, I don't believe in God. Well, yeah, I mean, there's a member of this system. In fact, there's more than one member of this system. And when I talk about systems, I mean, well, here I've got 7.5 selves that inhabit this body. Inhabit, that doesn't make sense. There are 7.5 souls that express through this form, and they take turns. And the front is Lisa. And, you know, she's the one who's sane, and she's the one who manages to keep us out of the bin. Because, you know, every time the other members of the system try and speak, other people say, well, Lisa, you're not yourself, and then they pop me in the bin. I've been in the bin quite a few times. A lot of us awakened folk get put in the bin. Sometimes it's pretty hard to escape the bin. And, you know, it's part of the mind control system. It's part of the elite system to enslave us. You know, people who are awakening to truth, I mean, you've got to deal with them somehow. Medication is usually the main way, or using force in some way. I mean, using medication as a form of force, because they never tell you what's in them. Don't tell you what's in them, don't tell you how they work, and, well, they don't know. That's the thing, they have no idea how they work. Well, yeah, actually, there are people who do know, but not everyone knows. Only those at the top know how they work. The psychiatrists are just part of the chain. They get fed a whole bunch of bullshit, and then they hand them out and say that they're going to work. Oh, this will treat your condition. What condition's that? Well, you know, I've got DID, which is the new name for multiple personality disorder. It's dissociative identity disorder. So I have numerous selves in here, as I said, 7.5. I mean, I always have a bit of a giggle to myself when I say 7.5, because, you know, who's the half? And it's sort of complicated, and, you know, it could take me quite a while to explain, and I don't think I really need to explain. I just, you know, I mean, I'm happy to explain in another video. You know, I may well do, and, you know, it'll come out eventually. It'll be all set out in my book, and everybody will understand why. craziness was being expressed from here through this form. You know, it's a hell of a thing to come to terms with the fact that you're God. You know, and like I can imagine, you know, people saying, "Oh God," "Oh God," well that can't be right. Well, yeah, well I can see why you wouldn't think that. I can see why, you know, people listening into this would say, "No, she's not God. You know, God's in the sky. God's coming down on a cloud with the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse." I tell you what, if I saw that, I'd be amazed. I'd be absolutely amazed. But I would know that it wasn't any God that was over me. Can't be. Because it arises in my consciousness. Anything that arises in my consciousness can't be in charge of me and can't be responsible for this. For this that's being experienced right now. It can't be any other. There can be no other responsible for this being here. This, or that's all I can call it. I can just call it this. It's this. See, I'm looking in just up there, I'm just studying a few things in the view, and there's not much in the view. But there's a pink flamingo. He's not very pink anymore. He was when I got him. My children gave him to me. He's so cool. But he's not as pink. He looks like me, more like he's white. He's a pale shade of pink now. Well, I'm just going to put my cigarette out. And, you know, I mean, what's God doing smoking cigarettes? Well, the system seems to require cigarettes at times. For the moment, I mean, not necessarily forever. But, you know, I mean, tobacco is a shamanic herb. Spirit plant medicine is what we call it. And, you know, I mean, one of the problems with the cigarettes that I smoke, well, you know, when I don't have the ability currently to grow my own tobacco in the way that would be life-affirming. But, you know, so I'm aware of the fact that every time I smoke a cigarette, I'm absorbing bad karma through that cigarette. And, you know, it's nothing to do with the tobacco that's in it, although it partly is, because the tobacco is being grown in cash crops, and tobacco doesn't like to be grown that way. I mean, nothing really likes to be grown that way. But, you know, I mean, the food for people is happy enough to be grown in that way if it's being sold at a reasonable price and there's not much happening to it between when it comes out of the ground and when it goes to the end consumer. And, you know, a reasonable price is paid for it and all those things. Those are all, you know, spirit conscious, life-affirming, life-respectful ways of dealing with what comes from the earth. So, you know, the problem with cigarettes, the ones that I bought, I mean, I buy the ones that say holiday on them, and, you know, I mean, that's an advertising ploy for sure. But, you know, I mean, I choose the words that go with the products that I use. It's an interesting way to live. There are times when I'm not vibrating at a very fast frequency where things start to really slow down. I become very sluggish and I forget who I am. It happens on a regular basis. And, you know, at those times I really contract back, back's not really the right word, but I contract into a sense of being a separate self inside a body called Lisa, who's, you know, it can contract to the point where it's like, I'm a fuck up. I'm just a walking fuck up, and everything I've done was the wrong thing, and, you know, terrible guilt and shame from childhood abuse, and, you know, anger, raging anger at everything that's ever happened to me as an individuated person, because, you know, Lisa has had a life. But then, you know, there's other selves here that represent other perspectives and their higher perspectives. And, you know, the one that I'm speaking from now is it the highest perspective? No, it's probably not. It's not. Who is speaking now? I quite often ask that. Well, I don't ask it. It's usually Lisa, because she's the one who always wants to know. I mean, Lisa finds it very hard to hand over the reins to other selves because she doesn't really trust them, because they've got her into trouble in the past, and That's for sure. She's been locked up in the bin many times as a result of what the other selves have said and done, and lost access to her children, and then spent a lot of time worrying about the children while she was in hospital, because the reason why she was in hospital was because she was trying to rescue her children and keep them safe, because that's a kind of an ongoing problem that Lisa has. It's not a problem. Well, it's had some consequences, all the times that Lisa's tried to, rescue her children. So, well, she's just saying, well, what else can I do? Well, absolutely. I mean, you're their mother and you worry about them and you want them to be safe. And you weren't safe as a child, and so, your natural inclination is to protect your own young. And I mean, you wouldn't be a good mother if you didn't. That powerful, powerful, powerful urge to act. Well, you're being told by me and by other selves that you just need to take it easy. Just take it easy and just trust that everything is going to work out just fine, because God's in control and God has always been in control, and there really has not ever been one moment where God hasn't been in total control of everything. And that sounds like, what kind of callous God is that that's been, dancing us around like puppets and, playing goodies and baddies? What, for whose benefit? For all of our benefit, ultimately. And I mean, you will see that. I will show you that, and I'll show it in a way where you just will not be able to deny it. It'll be like, it'll resonate so deeply within your being that you'll be like, there'll be such a sense of relief, and there'll just be this laughter, and it'll be like, are you for real, honestly? And it'll be like, are we there? Because, like, the souls have been screaming at me, are we there yet, are we there yet, are we there yet? And I've been saying, no, not yet, soon, we'll be there soon. And, Lisa's been screaming the loudest of all, because, the amount that she's been through lately and in her life, her whole life, it's been unbelievable. What a life story Lisa's got to tell. She's written 1 million words. I mean, she actually has written 1 million words of her life story, and it is very interesting. It's going to be called Proof of Divinity. That's the name of my book. Proof of Divinity, and it's going to be in a lot of volumes. Prove to who? Well, do I need to prove to you? Do I need to prove to you that I'm God? Well, it's part of the process, isn't it? It's part of the unfolding, but, ultimately, do I need to prove to anyone that I'm God? No. I only need to know myself that I am. And everything else follows from there, doesn't it? Well, you might not know that, I guess, and then you might be thinking, well, because this is Lisa, she holds this perspective, and she's always able to fill me in on what that perspective is, because sometimes it can be very difficult for me to access that perspective from being all of it. In order to access the perspective of being a small part of it, then I have to have Lisa here to fill me in. So, what are the peeps going to be thinking about this recording, Lisa? And you can speak if you want. She says she doesn't want to speak, but she can speak in the mind space and tell me what she would like to say. She says they're not going to believe it. No, they're not. But, some people will, because some people will be vibrating at the level of love and truth. And if you're vibrating at the level of love and truth, then truth resonates with you. If you're not vibrating at the level of love and truth, then lies will resonate with you as being truth. And now that's where the Trump supporters are. They're in that camp. But luckily, there's more people who don't support Trump than there are who do. And here I am talking about Trump again, but, what can I say? He really is playing the beast very well, bless him. He's going to get an Oscar for that. He really is going to get an Oscar, because he's been brilliantly playing the beast, And others playing evil buggers. Is Trump evil? Oh, man, he's so deep in fear and lies, it's not funny. But, Donald, darling, I see you and I sitting down having a chat and a laugh. Man, are we laughing. And for the first time in your whole life, you have a sense of peace that's just all-pervading. You know, I mean, like nothing to worry about at all. Nothing to defend, you know. No glory, but, you know, no defeat. I mean, I can give you some glory if you want, but you seem to have been trying to grab that for yourself already. Not very successfully, but, you know. So, you know, well, what can I say? I'm just thinking about Donald, bless you, you poor little bugger. I mean, your ego had such a bad ride. You were conditioned to behave exactly the way you're behaving now, sweetheart, exactly the way you're behaving, and you're doing everything absolutely perfectly on cue. And so, you know, then I've got a whole bunch of people, like Lisa saying, don't, you know, you've the perspective of those who hate Trump. They're not going to understand if God's on the side of Trump. Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not on the side of Trump. I'm not. Shall I drop down to a lesser self? A lesser. Well, she's not really a lesser self, but she operates at a different frequency. She has to because she's the judge. You know, I mean, I'm the Immaculate Supreme Brahman Absolute. I'm the mother of all. And so, you know, I mean, I love everything. And I love Donald as much as I love my own children. It's true. Well, by my own children, I mean the children of this body that came from this body. And, you know, if that's difficult for you to understand, Donald, then, you know, we really need to work on that. You know, if you and I sat together and had a chat, you know, I would be able to assure you that I love you as much. I love you as much as every other soul. More than any other soul? No. Do I think you're more special than any other soul? No. Every soul is equally special. Just amazing, so amazing. All the souls out there, they're so amazing. You know, I mean, they've done some serious work, you know. But, you know, they think they did the work on themselves and the egos think they're doing the work on themselves. But, sweethearts, I'm dancing, you all always have been. And that's the reason why I'm not going to let you go at the last moment. Say, well, I've been dancing you the whole time and now I'm going to drop you like a hot potato. Why would God do that? Why would God do that? You know, I just love you all too much. I made you. I made you all from scratch. You're all handmade. You are. I mean, even the ones that Lisa hasn't met, they're all handmade. I've handmade you all. You know, there was one, you know, time where there was a story that was put about by some of the other souls in the system who said that, you know, there are some extra special souls. I think you're all pretty beautifully cooked, you know, in your own way. You know, some of you are further along in your evolution of consciousness than others, but, you know, that's fine. We'll all just hold hands and we'll, you know, dance along together. You know, and that doesn't mean that Donald goes to the back of the queue. I mean, it might do. It might mean that he has to go to the back of the queue if he's too arrogant to come in. And with the humility, you know, there has to be humility there because, you know, how can grace and mercy come in and say, okay, it's all good. And, you know, I mean, who am I talking from the perspective of? Well, it's still Tisba speaking, but I'm happy to switch to Christ if you like. Well, this is Christ speaking. And, you know, I'm the judge. I don't tolerate any bullshit whatsoever. And, you know, I mean, I've got two other souls here that make up the Trinity. And so that's me, Christ, and then there's Wrath. And she's like capital WR, seven A's, TH with an exclamation mark. And when she writes, it's always in full caps, and she swears quite a lot. And she's got these punishments that she's come up with over the years for the Illuminati, terrible punishments that involve. This is Christ speaking, so I mean, I wouldn't really want to introduce you to Wrath. And she says she's quite happy to stay at the back, provided I represent her fairly, which I will do my best to do, and no doubt she'll fill me in if there's anything I've missed out. But yeah, I mean, Wrath has got some terrible punishments lined up for the Illuminati. Holy shit. It's terrible. And now it sounds like it's Tisba who's come in because the voice is really softened and this doesn't really sound like Christ. But like Christ can sound very similar to Tisba at times because there's a very fine line between them. The main difference between like the Christ system, which is the like upper higher selves, so the three higher selves that belong to the three lower selves that make up the egoic self of Lisa. Tisba takes, she's like got the ultimate perspective and it's all her and she wrote the scripts and, everything's going to turn out according to plan. She knows because, she's in charge of it all. Whereas Christ, I don't have that same sense of having control over things. I sort of defer to Tisba, I call her, the Immaculate Supreme Brahman Absolute. Some people get to call her Tisba, not many. But yeah, so I mean, her perspective is that it's all one and it's all her, and she's hardly going to disown part of her own self. Although there has been threats in the past of chopping off her own arm to get rid of evil, and that wasn't actually her who was doing that because that was never the plan. So I mean, yes, evil was running rife, but it's all part of the plan. And then that makes it sound like Lisa's saying, hey, just be careful, you don't want people to think you're Satan. Well, Christ isn't Satan. Tisba, well, she includes Satan, but Christ isn't Satan. Christ fights the Antichrist. Fights, well, yeah, it has to. Well, it has in the past had to do that. It's going to have to do that this time. Well, I'm really hoping not. Because, it could get fucking ugly, really fucking ugly very quickly if there's much more of this going on, this resistance to change. Message to the elite, you're not going to succeed on this plan that you've got because Tisba wrote the plan and I know what the plan is. I know what your plan is. I'm well onto your plan. I get filled in by Tisba. And, she's saying that, there's all these plans afoot and we're having a bit of a quiet laugh to ourselves in the system. The lower selves, the egoic selves, the Lisa in particular is like, you guys are cracked. Yeah. I mean, she has moments, she has quite long moments actually, at times where she's like fully on board because she can hear God speaking and she's like, wow, pay attention. But yeah, I mean, you've got to be resonating, you've got to be vibrating at the right level in order for it to resonate as truth. And if you're not vibrating at the right level, then it won't resonate as truth. It'll sound like quackery, it'll sound like craziness, it'll sound like lies, it'll sound like the Antichrist, it'll sound like, that, I'm the whore of Babylon. I'm all ready to go on that. I'm all ready to go. Who's you? Who's saying you? You. Well, there definitely will be souls out there who will believe that I am the whore of Babylon. And that's what evil sees when evil comes across pure love and pure intelligence. But it's, it's all smoke and mirrors. It's all smoke and mirrors. Everything's been turned upside down for a purpose, which, I'm happy to fill in people on at some other stage, but it doesn't seem appropriate right at the moment. But this message is one of absolute total hope. I mean, hope for all of it, eh? Like nothing excluded. You can't build heaven with all these beautiful souls, even the ones that look real dirty and tainted and need to be proven before they can ascend. It's not a difficult process. Like, believe me when I say that you just get such a hand up every which way. You do not have to suffer this process. No one has to suffer this process of being proven for ascension. You don't have to. As far as I can see, all the suffering's been done already and there doesn't need to be any more. And did there need to be suffering before? Well, yeah, I mean, that was the experiment. That was what we did it for. How much can we suffer? How much can we put up with? How much can we limit ourselves as, eternal souls? How can we, make ourselves very, very small and very insignificant? In actual fact, we're like, we're God. We're God, Each and every one of you is God. God in the flesh. No one excluded, not Satan. No, there's not Satan versus God. There's Christ versus Satan, definitely. That's playing out. But it doesn't have to play out for much longer. I mean, we could stop that game right now if we wanted to. Just get on board. Just get on board. Everyone get on board. Why not? There's nothing to lose and everything to gain by getting on board. Honestly, I mean, honestly, no questions asked. Well, no questions asked. I mean, there has to be some account of what was lived by the soul. But so you can add it to your list of stories. I mean, we've got all eternity to tell each other our stories, and the worst stories of doing the worst things. Well, we probably might keep them locked up in a special library in a special place, a sacred place. That's tapu. Tapu is the Maori word for sacred, but sort of scary sacred, something that's sort of a bit dark and has to be protected because it's got the potential to taint the innocent. And so, yeah, there will have to be a place where some of the most edgy stuff, I call it edgy, Christ calls it something altogether different from that. Because now it's Tisba speaking again, although, it's difficult sometimes. Christ can't really tell sometimes the difference. But the perspective, the Christ perspective is that, there's some really bad shit going down and it needs to stop. Needs to stop. So I haven't got much recording time left. My phone says I've got 27 minutes and 31 seconds and I'm nearly up to 27 minutes, and so I'm going to close shortly. But, I wish you all well, and I just want you to, keep the faith. You don't have to have faith in me particularly, not Lisa. You don't need to have faith in Lisa. Have faith in God, whatever God means to you. But if you're worshipping a guy God, well, you can continue to do that if you choose. It's not the real one. And so, Lisa's saying, I remember the Christians say if a woman is speaking and professing to be God, that's the whore. Yeah, well, that's what we're up against, isn't it? But never mind.